Unmasking Narcissism, the ugly truth behind that mirror. Have you ever encountered someone with an insatiable need for admiration and an inflated sense of self importance? Stay tuned as we delve deep into the world of narcissism, revealing the untold secrets and some practical solution on this episode of The Mirror. If you've ever dealt with a narcissist in your life, or you just want to understand this personality trait a little better, you are in the right place. I am Rhonda Girodi, and I am excited to have you here today for this final episode of this series. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on insightful content. So I once read something, and at the time it seemed really extreme, but it actually seems quite fitting for what we want to talk about today. So let me read it to you. Don't be naive. There are difficult times ahead. As this world carries on, people are going to be self-absorbed and money-hungry, self-promoting, stuck-up, profane, contemptuous of parents, crude, coarse, dog-eat-dog, unbending, slanderous, impulsively wild, savage, cynical, treacherous, ruthless, reckless, conceited, devoid of natural human affections, addicted to lust, and allergic to God. They'll make a show of spirituality and religion, but behind the scenes, they've denied its power because their conduct nullifies their claim of faith. Stay clear of these people. Whoa! I know it seems really extreme, and it did to me as well when I first read it, but when I look around, isn't that exactly the type of narcissistic behavior that we see all the time? So in my journey, I've encountered a lot of narcissists from every walk of life, okay? There's no prejudice there. I didn't know it by that name, but I recognize the traits well enough. Narcissism is a personality trait that can completely destroy relationships, be it in the workplace or even in your personal life. I grew up with someone who used to say, I come first. I am the most important. Now, I am a huge proponent of self-care, but that statement always felt so off when they said it. And their comment wasn't situational. It was a constant thread woven through so many of their decisions and their choices. This person was very difficult to navigate, and their narcissism showed up in so many different ways. So, for example, they were often late. I'm not talking 10, 15 minutes late. I mean, hours late. But they didn't care. They had something else going on, and the person could either wait or leave. It mattered not. Why? Because of this statement, I come first. So let's unravel the mysteries of narcissism and find some effective ways to deal with it. Let's define the term narcissism. Narcissism is a personality trait, and it's characterized by an excessive need for admiration, a grandiose sense of self-importance, and also a lack of empathy for other people. It's a multifaceted trait, and it's quite fascinating, to be honest, but it can manifest in various ways. Narcissists are not bad people. They're good people, but their actions are so off-putting and can be extremely damaging to the people around them. They are convinced that they are better, they are special, and more deserving of special treatment. And that's pretty much how they approach the world. They view it from the perspective that life and the people around them, everything has to revolve around them, and everyone has to cater to them. And that's how it should be, because they always come first. Narcissistic traits versus narcissistic personality disorder. Two very different things. So, narcissism is a term that encompasses a range of behaviors and characteristics related to self-centeredness and this bloated view of oneself. However, it's very important to distinguish between the traits and narcissistic personality disorder itself, which is NPD, as they present very different levels of severity and the impact on someone's life. So let's talk about the narcissistic traits. So the traits refer to certain behaviors and characteristics that can be exhibited by people to varying degrees. So the traits are common in many people and can be considered part of, the normal spectrum of human personality. Some common narcissistic traits include a desire for recognition, seeking admiration and validation from others, a sense of superiority, believing that one is special and unique, a lack of empathy, difficulty sort of understanding or considering other people's feelings, manipulation. So using others for their personal gain, for their advantage, and actually not even feeling bad about it. Engaging in a lot of this exaggerated self-importance and overestimating their abilities and their achievements. Then a need for control. There's a strong desire to be in charge and to dominate in situations. And ironically, a very fragile ego, self-esteem that can be easily wounded, pride that is easily bruised, very sensitive to criticism. People with narcissistic traits may display some or all of these behaviors at times, and they might not necessarily have a diagnosable personality disorder. So these traits may be more or less pronounced in different individuals and different situations, and it can also vary in intensity over time. Now, narcissistic personality disorder, on the other hand, is a diagnosable mental health condition found in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Yes, a bit of a tongue twister there. To be diagnosed with NPD, you have to exhibit these traits on a consistent basis and in a pervasive way. Narcissistic behaviors and traits that significantly impair your functioning in a lot of areas in your life. It often requires professional intervention and treatment. So it's important to distinguish between the two. It's essential for us to understand and address it so that we can deal with some of the challenges as they present themselves. Now, today we're going to be focusing more on narcissistic traits, because if you actually have something that's an actual personality disorder, then you certainly need professional help with that. Narcissism can be influenced by a lot of different things. So your temperament, for example, can impact narcissistic traits. We live in this social media epidemic, which really nurtures narcissistic behavior. And of course, you have family dynamics. Early family experiences can definitely contribute to the development of narcissistic traits as well. And of course, cultural influences, so societal values and norms, they can either promote or discourage narcissistic behavior. Now let's connect the 4 temperaments with narcissism. Now, each of the temperaments can influence the way in which narcissism manifests, how it presents in people. So take, for example, our choleric temperament. Cholerics are innately dominant and they're very assertive and they have some perfectionism qualities in there as well. They're very driven by a need for achievement and success. And so they are naturally more prone to grandiose narcissism, and they might exhibit an overinflated ego and a constant desire for recognition and control. Sanguines are also quite outgoing, they're enthusiastic, they're very social, and they seek excitement and attention innately. So they thrive in social settings. So this attention seeking and excitement, they also have a tendency to display more overt narcissistic tendencies. They could have an excessive need for admiration, and they can be extremely charming and very manipulative. Phlegmatics are calm and easygoing and conflict avoidant. So they prefer harmony, and they may generally be seen as introverted. So since they're typically less assertive, they can actually struggle with a more covert form of narcissism, but they're generally speaking less likely to be narcissistic. Melancholics are analytical and introspective by nature and very detail oriented. So they often are quite self-critical, and they strive for such high standards. So with these high standards and that self-criticism, they can experience an introverted form of narcissism as well. So they may constantly be seeking that validation, and they have that fear of failure. It is very important for us to remember that while temperaments can influence narcissistic tendencies, it doesn't mean that everyone with a specific temperament will exhibit narcissistic traits. Narcissism is a very complex personality trait, and it's influenced by lots of things, like we talked about: your upbringing, societal influences, and of course, your own personal experiences. All right. So when we get back, we'll discuss narcissism in romantic relationships and from the perspective of sex and sexuality. All right, see you in a bit. Narcissists can be very particular about their sexual preferences. When it comes to intimacy, they might have really clear expectations about what they want their partner to do or what they want their partner to say. They're all about following the script that they have in their heads, and they don't handle the deviations very well. It's all tied back to the lack of empathy because, of course, it's all about them. So when it comes to romantic relationships, narcissistic behavior, let's delve into that. With their romantic relationships, they would prioritize themselves over the needs of their partner. They will basically disregard the partner's well-being. So let's give it some balance here. We can all exhibit traits of narcissism on occasion. So for example, we may exaggerate our efforts that we put into a romantic gesture, or we might, pick specific photos to post on social media to make other people jealous of our relationship. Or sometimes maybe we do less than our fair share of the chores, and our partner ends up doing the brunt of the work. So we all have these little tendencies. However, when these behaviors form a consistent pattern, or they become considerably more detrimental, narcissistic behavior is now evolving into something that's beginning to be of a big concern. All right. So here are some examples of when you kind of need to have those red flags going off. When you have one partner that exploits another partner to boost their status, their wealth, or their admiration from others. Perhaps They regard their partner as an object or a servant, or they view them as solely as a means to fulfill their own needs. When they routinely cross very clear established boundaries with minimal remorse. So, for example, engaging in extramarital affairs and not seeming remorseful, or they spend shared savings without consultation, and again, no remorse. If the partner is very manipulative and they say things like, "You're lucky to be with me," or "Nobody else will want you," things like that. And they try to make their partner very insecure so that they become more susceptible to their control. They gaslight, they undermine their partner's ability to believe the criticism of their behavior. They resort to threats. So they say things like, "If you keep coming at me or challenging my behavior, I'm just going to end this relationship," or "I'm going to hurt myself," or "I'm going to hurt somebody else." It's all part of the manipulation to get their way, because it's all about them and they must get what they want. So when the behavior begins to be at that level, that's when it becomes a massive concern. So these behaviors, if they are reoccurring and entrenched, they can have serious and lasting effects on the well-being of any relationship. So it is crucial to recognize and address the patterns of narcissistic behavior to be able to foster healthier and more equitable connections with other people. Okay, Rhonda. So we've talked all about narcissism, how dangerous it can be. What can I do about it if I see those traits in myself or even in someone else? All right, so let's talk about how we can address it. Understanding the connection between narcissism and temperaments, that can be a pretty valuable tool for addressing it, because it allows us to sort of tailor the approach when we're dealing with narcissistic individuals, or even recognizing the tendencies in ourselves. So here are a couple of things. First of all, self-reflection. So encourage individuals to examine their own behavior and become a little bit more self-aware. And then, of course, empathetic communication. It's important to actively listen and be empathetic when you're dealing with narcissists. Boundaries and consequences. That's key. Setting boundaries and implementing the consequences in relationships with narcissistic individuals is one of the main ways that you can counter some of their tactics. And of course, if all else fails, seek professional help. I am a huge advocate for professional counseling, therapy, coaching, depending on the situation. Highlight the benefits of getting therapy and counseling to be able to address these things more effectively if some of our own efforts are not having the desired effect. Now, personally, I always feel that there is a spiritual aspect to things. And obviously, as you know, my spirituality is extremely important to me. So if anyone recognizes some of these traits in themselves and you find them unbecoming and you would like to definitely do something about it, I would recommend that one of the things you can do is begin to deepen your relationship with the Lord. It's certainly something that can begin the process of change in your life, focusing on love and empathy and humility. All of these things will go a long way. Put yourself in a position where you can allow God to change your heart, your perspective, that too will go a really long way. If you foster a life that's filled with gratitude and compassion, that won't leave as much room for some of these narcissistic traits. I know it sounds simplistic, but it's what I have experienced in my own life. This process has to start with a mindset shift. So for those of you who are part of my valued audience, and if you need some extra motivation, you can click on the link that's within this post, and it'll give you access to a very useful freebie that's going to sort of kickstart your journey in terms of shifting your thoughts and shifting that mindset. All growth begins with our thoughts. So you change your mindset and your behavior will follow. Now, again, I like to bring a sense of balance. Everyone appreciates being valued. Everyone needs recognition and attention. You know, it's a fundamental part of our human experience. But what we're talking about is when these are in the extreme. You know, narcissism is a complex and multifaceted personality trait, and it can have a significant impact on everyone, the narcissist, the people around them. So the origins, the characteristics, the potential consequences, all of that, we have to consider all of that. It's important to recognize that narcissism exists on a spectrum, and not all individuals who exhibit the traits will develop full-blown personality disorder. All right. Like I said, it's on a spectrum. You just have to manage where we fall on that spectrum. So understanding it can be a crucial step in fostering healthy relationships and your personal growth. Remember that while narcissism can pose challenges, individuals with these traits can seek help and they can make positive changes. All hope is not lost. So by promoting empathy and self-awareness, open communication, we can navigate some of these complexities, and we can foster more compassionate, and we can develop a more connected, loving, grateful, humble society. I know that might seem like a stretch in certain situations, but we have to start somewhere, right? Why not start with us? So if you found this video informative, please like it, share it, comment. Tell me your experiences. Do you know a narcissist? Have you experienced any of this? Do you exhibit some of these traits? Tell me your strategies. Tell me how you've dealt with it. And also consider subscribing so that you can stay updated on our valuable content. Please stay empowered. Believe in your ability to address and overcome narcissism and all the other things that we've talked about in this series as it relates to your life and your family, your friends, your relationships. But thank you so much for joining me today on The Mirror. I am Rhonda Gironi. Be well and make this week the best week ever.